I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like. We appreciate it.
Podcast below in the description. I need to get on that as well.
And check out our friends at wineaccess.com/ham.
Wineaccess.com/ham. Send a gift today. 20% off. Send some wine.
Jeremy Fowler said on SportsCenter on Saturday over the weekend, I'm told San Fran spent much of the OTAs and minicamp working on Trey Lance's mechanics, making sure things were compact. And the reason they wanted to get that down is so that in training camp, they can unleash the full arsenal. They can show him off as a runner. They don't want to put him in harm's way and have him take too many hits. But they love the dimension he can bring to Kyle Shanahan's attack because they couldn't do it with Jimmy Garoppolo. They could do it with Lance as a runner and a passer. You know, you and I talked about this before the draft. We talked about it with Mel Kiper when Mel Kiper was on the podcast, remember? And Mel said,
I remember that.
Don't worry about his mechanics. And I'd be interested to hear kind of your perspective, having scouted guys, how much a quarterback's mechanics come up in draft rooms. Because sometimes the discussion is just, hey, a guy throws the way he throws. There's only so much you can do. But you and I talked about this when we were at the Niners OTA practice that we attended, that even though it's hard to do an apples-to-apples comparison between him and Jimmy because they're not always throwing the same route, there are times where they take a snap simultaneously. And I did think watching them that Jimmy consistently got rid of the ball quicker than Trey Lance did. Now, I do think one of Garoppolo's great attributes is that when he decides to throw, he gets rid of the ball. I do think he gets rid of the ball quickly to begin with. I don't know where he ranks from a statistical standpoint, but I do think his release is quick, right? So Trey Lance is going up against a guy that's been honing that release for a while. But nonetheless, is this something you think that can actually be improved in this short of amount of time? Because it looks like they think they're improving it.
It is a defining attribute for Jimmy, for sure. And you just notice it at training camp, where the practice we're at, just relative to Trey Lance. He gets rid of the ball fast. He does not have an elongated release. I think when you're scouting a guy, unless you're a former coach, I think you can see loopy releases, right? You could see that. My mom could see that. A Tim Tebow level release, right? I think Cam's always had a little bit of a funky release. And I think there were some questions, I know, from my scouting buddies that went through North Dakota State that thought it was a little elongated. So if you just work on matching a quicker release with your footwork so it's all kind of in one motion, just to make things faster. But I am a big believer, and just being a guy that has played a lot of golf and who have worked on things over my life, and I think anyone who's played as a baseball player, any swing, and I think a throwing motion is very similar. You do have some muscle memory. So Trey Lance has been throwing like he's been throwing since he's been throwing a football, which I think he's 21. It's fair to say pretty consistently, probably since 10 years old, right? Just been the quarterback for recess, junior high, high school. It's hard to break those habits. I don't think you can just snap a finger and get a different release pattern than you had before. But I think it's fair to say that the Niners isolated something in his mechanics that they want to improve on. I don't think you can just snap your fingers and think you have a new throwing motion, though. So I think that's a positive thing. I also think when you read a headline like that, fundamentals sound so trivial, I think, in pro sports, where I've always believed just the best players – and the best players of our lifetime, right? Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. But you can use other sports as well. Kobe Bryant. I think Michael. I'm sure baseball players for sure. Derek Jeter. They're fundamentals at their craft, whether it's playing shortstop, whether it's the footwork in the post, whether it's Peyton Manning on his play action fakes. They master that. I bet if you went to a Colts practice in 2009, the individual period, like you and I think, know the vernacular if you're listening. Football practices are kind of broken up into individual, group, team, right? Individual, you're with your position. Group, running backs, quarterbacks, centers, right? Wide receivers, corners, D linemen, O linemen. And then you get together as the bigger group, and you're constantly working on fundamentals that lead up to 11 on 11, right? Which incorporate the play, but you have fundamentals within the play. You have to master the fundamentals before you can become a great player in a team setting. And that I think that works for any sport. And you could argue probably any walk of life. the most basic things you do lead to the bigger things you do. And I think it's more just establishing good habits than trying to just change his fundamentals overnight, which to me, they're clearly trying to improve on some stuff, but I don't think you can expect to see a drastically different player than we're going to peak at on Thursday night or Wednesday night, excuse me.
Steph Curry, right, famously changed his jump shot at a young age as a teenager, changed his jump shot to get a higher release. He had not grown much yet, but that was at a younger age. I also think first of all, I think from a fundamental standpoint, like if we talk about fundamentals, if you said let's rank NFL player fundamentals, I think Tom Brady's footwork is something that comes up a lot, right? And that's the kind of thing that you can overcome for a short period of time when you're athletically maybe at your peak or when you're young enough to make up for mistakes. That as time goes on, if you don't have those ingrained fundamentals, as you age, I think that tends to be also where we start to see the issue. In other words, let's say Trey Lance doesn't have as quick a release as you want as a rookie, but he's very mobile within the pocket, can get out of trouble, can run, right? Those are things that maybe you can overcome. If Drew Brees didn't have incredible fundamentals, Drew Brees is probably out of the league who knows how many years ago, even with the brain he has. And we've seen the famous video that Reggie Bush took of Drew practicing on air in the practice dome 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago or last year? Whichever. It's not fake. It's very real. I think the question with Trey, this idea that this is what I would ask a quarterback coach. So you're going to work on his fundamentals here for 40 days, and then you're going to say, okay, the idea is that when we get back, he's going to be ready to roll. I do think there's probably an element of you don't really know how tight you have whatever you're working on until you're playing against live bullets, right?
That's what I'm saying, because you resort back to muscle memory.
Yeah, you can ingrain it until all of a sudden, the rhythm's off because the receiver got jammed and there's a pass rush and somebody missed a block and X, Y, Z. So I think it'll take time, which is fine. This guy does not have one of the questions with Trey Lance is also why there's so much upside, right? There's not a lot that he's really done live action quarterbacking a football team. He hasn't done a lot of it beyond high school.
And I think you hit it on best. You never truly know what you have to work on until you play in live situations. I think you hear it a lot with baseball players. Like if you want to get really inside baseball and the nitty gritty and just follow and read about a team and young players, how they can't hit a pitch, they go back down, they work on the pitch. They're like, I think they got it. But then they maybe come back up to the big leagues. They still can't hit the pitch. There's just that hole in the swing that they just can't change it, right? I think a golf swing is a great example. Tiger's really the only guy who changed his golf swing over and over, because most times I know the thing in golf, and I think this is the same in baseball, same in any sport, pressure, just your body just reacts.
Oh, I thought you were going to go low Neil.
Well, no.
Bust pipes and creates diamonds or whatever.
You can't, pressure, because you can't think when you play. And part of what makes Tom Brady great, right? His footwork is ingrained. Peyton Manning's footwork was ingrained, right? Derek Jeter or Brandon Crawford's a good example of just the way he plays at shortstop now. He doesn't think, he just plays, right? You watch John Rahm. John Rahm's just playing. But you built that up, and the throwing motion is a good example of Trey may never have to do the level of, not that he shouldn't, but things that Drew Brees had to do to overcome his physical limitations. But he will have to master just the basic fundamentals of part of why Drew Brees, remember that was like in the end zone, was like thinking about his red zone looks.
Yeah.
Like Drew can't run, right? Drew knows if shit hits the fan and I got nowhere to go and I don't know my read immediately based on the 7 different coverages I could see, I'm fucked. Right? There is an element that Trey is going to have that you just got to meet that balance, because at the end of the day, when shit hits the fan, you can just take off. Right? I mean, that's part of the deal. Because part of it was like, Jimmy, don't run. But you didn't want Jimmy to run because he couldn't run away from anybody. Part of it's like, Trey, go. That to me is a big difference with a running quarterback. Then, which I don't know, I'm interested to see. I remember just with Michael Vick, for example, you were always nervous with him running because he couldn't slide.
Right.
So you're like, oh my God, he's going to take a big hit. That's the thing with Russell. You're like, take off, Russell, because you know he'll just slide.
Yep. Here's a quick preview.
So
John.
I'm fascinated to see, and we won't know till we start watching him run. Like, what's his running style like? Is it like avoiding? I know we'll see what he did in North Dakota State, but what's the first time when he sees
NFL speed.
Minka Fitzpatrick and him at the corner, right? Or
Well,
whoever. I mean,
I think
he's
going
go
to try
through the schedule.
Look. Should we just one quick preview of Wednesday night? We're watching for those of you listening to the podcast. Just a little watching. I think one thing that'll come up too as we watch him is this goes back to the hard thing to judge. Some of these guys that he's playing are not NFL players. The majority of them.
Jamal Adams or Jalen Ramsey or J.J. Watt.
I think it was Ed Reed. I think it was an all-star barnstorming team made up of just elite safeties. But anyway, I look. The point is,
Buda Baker. Is that Buda Baker?
Buda was not there. Nope. Buda was not there. Who's
but
the guy
that's
the
the
Cardinals
thing.
drafted last year?
Isaiah Simmons.
Isaiah Simmons was not there.
Wouldn't you say in this division, Buda Baker? I mean, Jalen Ramsey will rock you.
Jamal Adams.
I mean, those are some guys that are coming, right? I bet the two guys, Jamal Adams and Buda Baker, will take a lot of pride. Whenever this guy plays, if he plays against them as a rookie, that's a big moment for those two. Like, okay, motherfucker,
well,
I dare you to take that.
This goes back. Is there a responsibility for Kwaski, Tart, and Jimmy Ward? They can't hit him. But is there a way to send the mess? Is there a way to give him what feels more like NFL live speed looks, right? You miss this opportunity when you can't get hit in practice because you at least know those guys would pull up a little bit. So we'll have to wait till the preseason.
Those guys, you touch that player.
No, I'm not suggesting they hit him. I'm just saying
shit.
Those guys would be great guys they do that to other quarterbacks, right?
But it is the problem with trying to evaluate your young quarterback in a practice. You don't truly know what you have till that guy doesn't have to slow down in the last step.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe the instincts of the quarterback does a 360 and he makes a miss. Right?
Until
That's
the quarterback's
part
playing a game that he knows they can't hit him in. Or they can't.
Well, I'll never forget. I think it was Thursday Night Football. Browns, Carolina Panthers, and Johnny Manziel in the NFL, I'm sure in practice, was like running away from guys, and all of a sudden he takes off. And this guy, I think he goes by the name of Luke Kuechly, was like, I don't think you're going to beat me to the sideline, and destroyed him like you watch a lion on a gazelle in the Serengeti. And I bet Johnny, for the first time, was like, oh, that's a middle linebacker, not a corner, not a safety, the middle linebacker, who is way bigger than Johnny. Remember, Luke was big.
Yeah.
I mean, destroyed him.
Yep.